I will not sit here and talk everybody's ear off about Mass Effect. We actually have Destiny to talk about this week, Corey. There's a lot of Destiny to talk about this week.
I texted, like, I saw the TWAB one up early today. I'm like, I just texted you. I'm like, beefy TWAB.
I was so busy. Today was like the worst day possible to release it early too. I've been insanely busy the last couple of weeks. I mean, really the last few months have been kind of a blur for me. Just personally, a lot of family health issues and whatnot. And man, just one thing after another. So today I saw that when I got out of meeting my mom and her doctors. I was like, oh shit. All right. Of course this is when this is going to happen. And it is quite the beefy boy. But before we get to that, I want to dive into this trailer just a little bit. We got a new trailer on Tuesday, I believe it was. Was it Tuesday?
Yeah, it was Tuesday.
Tuesday. We got a new trailer.
So good. It was so good. Dude.
I am at the point where I have to stop watching Bungie trailers when we're like a month out from things. Not because I think that like, oh, they're intentionally spoiling shit, but as Dylan said on Twitter today, if you want to go in relatively spoiler free, like for stuff beyond the first mission, this is now the time to stop watching things. Like, we will give spoiler warnings wherever we can in the TWAB or on social, but we are going to discuss things that are in the marketing materials. We can only show so much of the same stuff over and over and over again. Which leads me to believe we're going to see some seasonal stuff here pretty soon, probably. The Exorcism is coming up, of course.
Yeah.
But goddamn, I get so hyped every time that Bungie makes a trailer. And this was yet another great one. I think this is a great final one, even though there's probably one more that will happen after the Exorcism happens in game in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I suspect that will be the final one, probably about 2 weeks before the expansion comes out.
Yeah.
2 to 3 weeks before. And just, I can't wait. This is going to be so good.
Yeah. It's going to be so good.
Oh man, I can't wait. There's some cool new abilities that we see in there. And a lot of the things are blink and you miss them, right? Mm-hmm. One is somebody, or the Guardian that's playing is in a dark hallway, has their flashlight on and looks at a Hive statue, and the arm moves, like to point you onward.
Yeah.
That looked really cool. There's a new Titan ability where they take the Sentinel shield and slam it into the ground to create like a super barricade, which is one of the new abilities that was talked about in the TWABs last September when they talked about Void 3.0. I think is when we found out about this.
Yeah, we're still getting comments on those videos, by the way. Those Void 3.0 abilities that we broke out.
Oh my god, that's wild,
dude. The Hunter and the Warlock ones have like. There's so many views on those. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Listen to the whole podcast.
Listen to the whole show. Tower Casuals every Friday morning on your podcast feeds.
Do we have to remind people of that after every segment that's broken out?
Tell your neighbors. Tell your neighbors. Tell your kids' hall monitor. Tell everybody you know. Friday mornings. Yeah. So seeing that was really cool. It's funny because like a lot of them are Titan abilities that I noticed. There is also another one that clearly whoever edits their gameplay footage has watched Thor Ragnarok lately, because there's one of the Titan using the Thunder Yeet and going down a bridge of Thrall and slamming into them. And it's a really, really cool shot. I appreciated that. The coolest detail to me, though, I think, and I thought it really was a blink and you miss it thing. I had to go back and slow it down a couple times because I thought I was seeing things. There is a statue of Oryx fighting his worm god.
Akka?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is. And I was like, is that? And then as soon as I'm wondering that, I see Bife calling it out on Twitter, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. And I had people text me going, oh my god, I didn't realize in the lore that Oryx had exercised his worm. I'm like, yeah, like it's not something that we've really like broken out on this show, so we're doing it tonight, but we're gonna do it in the lore corner at the end of the episode. But yeah, Oryx has beaten back his worm god before, and I think at this point it's safe to assume that Xivu Arath has probably exercised hers.
Yeah.
So that may be why. That's what's leading me to think like this is all a gigantic trap by Savathun that we've walked into.
Mm-hmm.
Us and Mara and Saint and Osiris and Crow are just pawns, right?
Yep.
I think this is her, seeing if she can trust us, and Mara's probably gonna pull a fast one on her, and it's gonna bite us all in the ass.
Yep. She's gonna do something because something is gonna happen to Crow, I think.
I think something happened to Petra.
Ooh, yeah, that too.
I think Crow has a newfound prominence in the story, and I think getting rid of Crow barely a year into his arc would be a gigantic mistake.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of the NPC focus the game kind of needed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think it's a shame that we're losing the Uldren story from Forsaken.
Yeah.
And like I kind of felt this way about the Red War. Like, I hate that they're getting rid of this. I think the Red War is a good campaign. I think it's important for the state of the universe and like why we're in the tower and things like that. But I could largely get past that, especially with those planets getting vaulted.
Mm-hmm.
I have a really big problem with getting rid of Forsaken, considering how important Crow is to the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be new lights who come in who have no idea who Cade is. Why is everybody so sad about Cade? Why Crow was what in his past life? Like, that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
Like, I play with friends who are lapsed, like the last major expansion they played was Forsaken, and they're like, this is kind of weird that we've gone from like 0 to 100 with this dude.
Yeah.
Or they just remember from Destiny 1. And I think that we're getting to a point where you're probably going to have to give the option to download the campaigns separately at some point. And I mean, that's something that you and I have personally called for several times.
Yeah.
If you want to have those installed, let us install them. Like, just don't make it mandatory to have them all. I do understand that creates issues with planetary zones and whatnot, because so many missions start out and are not in enclosed areas.
Yeah.
So I understand that. I get the annoyance there, and you can't really put up the invisible barriers and be like, you can only go here.
Right.
But there's got to be some sort of compromise. Like, even streamlining it, I think, is with Forsaken is difficult because of the Baron hunts and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So a little sad. That's really the first piece of content that we're losing. I'm like, man, I really wish we weren't losing this.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna replay it because I've been wanting to.
I am going to, yeah.
Because like I did the new light quest with a warlock, and I'm like, I should probably do at least the Forsaken campaign. I'll probably record it too, just to have it.
Yeah,
because that's one thing, and I know you can kind of download. You can actually download the cutscenes from Bungie for the Red War campaign, which was extremely helpful. But at the same time, like, it's not the same.
No, I would like, again, something I said last year before we got things removed is I really wish that there was a theater you could go to, and you could watch all the cutscenes.
I wonder if that's something they are considering doing and just haven't said anything yet. Because this is now technically 4 campaigns you're ripping out. If you include, I mean, not that, Osiris and Warmind were like big campaigns, but like Red War, Curse of Osiris, Warmind, now Forsaken, and some of the extra stuff that goes along with Forsaken, right? Like, that's a lot of story that you're just missing. And
yeah,
I look at, not that it's like the same type of game or anything, but you look at Gears 5 and they had they had like 3 separate intro videos. Here's the state of Gears, the world of Gears right now. here's what happened in the original trilogy, and here's what happened in Gears 4, which was really helpful. Even though I've played those games 100 times, like, I still found it.
I think part of the thing with Gear, like, for example, Gears, and, we know that Halo's done this in the past, too, is that those games are still readily available as well. Mm-hmm. It's not like, whoa, it's the next generation and the games aren't available on backwards compatibility or something like that. Like, these are ongoing games. And at a certain point, it's just getting really obnoxious that we can't go back. I'm not saying that I'm clamoring to go back and replay these campaigns all the time, but I do think that it fosters this attitude of your audience is finite. Like, at this point, if you're here, if you're invested, you're probably sticking around. Mm-hmm. Which is not a number to scoff at. It's a great number. But when you had a game that was available, and I think that's why it was so great that it was on Game Pass. If you're going to sit around and have a game that's free to play, though, you have to make the story accessible too. Like, free to play should not mean there is a barrier to understanding the story. I understand the idea was, just jump in and be able to play. But I think it makes it very, very difficult for new players to actually pick up and understand what the fuck is going on in these games. Mm-hmm. And that's disappointing because
it's even hard for someone who puts it down for 6 months and comes back and especially new season.
Our friend Ray Apollo, he put the game down. He didn't play for a lot of the back part of Forsaken. He kind of played during Opulence. Didn't play anything during Shadowkeep. Wandered back once Beyond Light hit Game Pass, and he was like, I have no idea what happened. Did not realize, because he's talked to me so much about lore, did not realize until a couple weeks ago he's never played Shadowkeep. And so he sat down to do it and was using his Forsaken ciphers and everything, but he's like, all right, I feel like I missed some seasonal stuff along the way. I was like, yeah, I mean, he's like, why is Saint 14 in the tower? And I had to explain to him that was a whole seasonal quest line in Shadowkeep. Mm-hmm. It's about the only one worth talking about, but it was a seasonal thing in Shadowkeep. And he was like, oh my God. I says, yeah, ever since, for the last 18 to 20 months now, ever since Arrivals hit, the seasonal storytelling has actually become essential. Mm-hmm. And it makes it really hard to, not just to step away for that, but as we're going to get into a little bit later with the new lights, if you are below the recommended power level for an activity, you're fucked. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. And half the time, these seasonal things boot you up and throw you into it without any chance to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And it can be really maddening when you're expected to sit there and solo it. Mm-hmm. Even if you're in a group full of people, it's going to match you with people that are relative to your light level, and that makes it really difficult. I think the game's got to get more new user friendly, and that's kind of, we're going to get into that a little bit tonight. We're going to go into the TWAB because there's a lot we need to talk about in there. There's one particularly major thing we need to discuss that has the community, I think, in a way, rightfully up in arms, even if I don't necessarily agree with being up in arms because of the way that I build craft. But also regarding communication from the community managers. And this is a point I really did want to drive home tonight. The top post on Destiny the Game subreddit, which I don't go there a whole lot anymore. It's usually just a bunch of negativity, but I did agree with this point that I saw today show up in my feed. That they're the community managers. So that Dylan, Liana, and Kevin Yanes, the Sandbox lead, were all kind of alluding on Twitter that there's going to be another TWAB later on this month, or this month or in February, that the weapon system is getting reworked as well, and this one was purely armor. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame that it's coming during Liana's first TWAB, because I think people are unjustly freaking out at her about it.
Yeah.
But it is bad communication. The title of the post is, you can't talk about communication to the community is important, then intentionally only give us partial news. And this is something that we've highlighted before. It's maddening when they do this, and then when we finally get it explained a few weeks later, people are like, oh, that's not as bad. Or when they see it in practice. But you can't drop this on us 5 weeks before the biggest content drop in 18 months. And then say, well, we're going to tell you more later, or just be clipping, paragraphs from past TWABs and posting them to Twitter. I'm sorry, I was freaking out until I started seeing clippings come around in Paul Tassie's mentions, for example. People were clipping things from TWABs. It had to have come from one like back in November. I'm sorry, I've had a lot of shit in my life in the last 2 months. I don't remember everything that was in a past TWAB.
Right.
I just don't. Like, if you're going to do that, I need a refresher. Maybe last week would have been great for, here's a refresher of the big things that we hit and things to keep in mind as we go forward. Because those couple paragraphs that were clipped out would have been insanely helpful for context.
Right.
Right? And that talked about, like, what if there were, like, weapon intrinsic perks? Like, what makes a void hand cannon from this new raid better than the void hand cannon that I won in the Crucible? Or something like that. And, like, perks tied to activities or to foundries and things like that, which is going to affect now the orb generation mechanic that we're about to talk about. But this poster on here, Proxy Knife is King, says this doesn't build hype. It just fosters an attitude of this better be worth it. You can't say communication is important when you're intentionally holding out info like this. The majority of players don't like the information presented. You all know this community well enough. You should have expected this. Why not just give us all the information up front? It's not like there isn't plenty of other reveals to give us to build up hype in later TWABs. This is a bad failure or intentional failure to communicate. And so I want to read Damage's response real quick. His first response. I hear you. Thanks for the feedback. Plan was to keep this TWAB focused on armor mods between changes to the artifact and a sneak peek at champion mods, with weapon news coming in a few weeks. I understand the change impacts weapons specifically due to the nature of the change, but still wanted to keep the conversation split as we're still getting information together for the weapons TWAB. We've done this a few times before, going from weapons, armor, mods, other, but obviously these had a little too much overlap to have a clean split. Apologies for the lack of a full picture here. We got a bit to cover over the next 5 weeks. Wanted to make sure each team gets enough time to finish up their content and work with us on the messaging. We want to get you all the information the moment we hear about it. Sometimes things are still being tied down and we don't want to make promises that we end up not being able to keep. That said, we can do more work in the future to make sure enough info is available between goals and execution to give a better picture. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean every player will always agree with the direction we're taking a given feature or topic, but hopefully it gives us enough context to help players understand the what and why. And I think when you manage a live game like this, it's trickier than being like the community manager for, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, for something like an Assassin's Creed or I don't know if Nintendo has social media managers, but for like Zelda or Pokemon or something like that. It's different when it's an online game, and especially when there's a competitive scene. Mm-hmm. We saw this over the Christmas break with Halo, just like how much vitriol was being lobbed at Brian Gerard and John and a few of the other guys over there, who they're like, guys, we ship the game, like we are not in charge of this. We can pass along the messaging, but y'all have got to stop like sending us threats and abusing us and things like that. Like, that's not gonna speed up the process any. And I'm not saying that that's what's happening to Dylan and Liana and Cosmo here at all, because I think the anger is justified from the community, because this has happened like 3 or 4 times off the top of my head in the past 12 months. Mm-hmm. This has happened. Yeah. This has happened repeatedly. This has been a problem repeatedly. And then when we get to the actual stuff being in the game, we're like, oh, this isn't as bad. Or when we get more context, like a week or 2 down the line, oh, this isn't that bad. This, and I don't want a backseat. I don't want to be a backseat dev. All I'm going to say is I understand that you need to have something out because you're committed to doing a weekly update. You're really going to tell me that there wasn't anything else? You could have just left out that part about the orbs and put it into a future one. Or maybe you're ready to talk about mods this week, because we talked about the artifact a lot in the TWAB this week. I think that there's definitely things that you could have done here, like, oh, let's highlight some of our favorite things from the trailer, especially because, like, oh, it's Liana's first TWAB, let's kind of warm up into it. And I think especially when you're a few weeks out from a major content launch, people are going to be more on edge than normal. These are things that I feel like, especially coming out of the Christmas holidays, probably should have been nailed down. You talked so much about Void 3.0 last year. Again, a refresher one would have been amazing this week, if you were still trying to nail that many things down this close to launch. And I understand you don't want to write like mega ones anymore, but maybe this was the week to do a mega one. Maybe this was the week to do a refresher and do weapons and armor together if it matters that much. If it's going to affect the sandbox that much, maybe we just need a whole sandbox one. I don't know what the solution is here, but I feel like there has to be something better than what we got. Mm-hmm. But I guess we should just go ahead and dive feet first into the fire here with the TWAB.
Don't sound so.
Well, the problem is, I want to get some good thoughts out of the way real quick. A lot of the changes that are talked about here are things that I've personally been asking for a long time in regards to the artifact system. It's just that one paragraph, those one or two paragraphs that like really set people on edge. So we're gonna start with the good, and then we're gonna work our way down to the bad, because it kind of falls apart as we read a little bit more here. So, one of the consistent pieces of feedback that we've been waiting to act on for a while involves the unlocking of artifact mods. Starting next season, players will no longer be limited to the number of mods they can unlock. This means players could feasibly unlock all 25 artifact mods by the end of the season. I feel like that would have been a really good feature to have tried out this season, but that's okay. I'll let it slide. We have made small adjustments to the amount of XP required to unlock artifact mods 1 through 12. In general, the pace unlocking the first 12 should be close to what we've seen in Season 15, which is not bad at all. If you play consistently, like in the first week, you're probably going to get almost all of your artifact mods in the first week. I know I usually have like 7 or 8 ready to go by the end of my first week, even if I don't hit it super hard. For each unlock after the 12th, increased XP will be required for the next artifact mod unlock, so the choice of which order to unlock mods still requires decision making. If you change your mind, you can still reset your artifact to make your picks again. That excites me, because I will probably be resetting more often than I ever have before. Just realistically, once I get to like 15, I don't see myself going past 15 or 16 unlocks in a regular season. When it comes to the mods themselves, we're bringing back a few perennial favorite anti-champion mods, including Anti-Barrier Scout Rifle and Anti-Barrier Bow. And we've done some work to make Disrupting an Overload champion, which can be done this next season with auto rifles and this season with auto rifles and SMGs, more reliable than in previous seasons. We're also highlighting the new glaive weapon archetype coming in the Witch Queen through a variety of artifact mods, including an option to make your glaive the solution to unstoppable champions, and a few new artifact mods that will enhance some of the new weapon perks. Take pressure off the vault space. This is where it all started going downhill. Okay, so those first two paragraphs, great news, stuff we've been asking for forever. I'm here because the champion mods this season suck. They're terrible. I hate them. It's not good. It's not great, Bob. The only one I enjoy is Unstoppable Fusion, and that's because I can just hold down the trigger on Vex and hope that it works.
Yeah. Well,
I'm gonna compose myself for a second.
Josh,
here.
Take a breath. Just take a breath.
Because I want to make sure that I'm going to read exactly what they say, and then I'm going to try to make it make sense, because I don't like the wording in either of these paragraphs, but to take pressure off your vault space, we are also making adjustments to the way Master Arc armors work. Starting with the launch of the Witch Queen, you can change the energy type of a fully masterworked piece of armor for much reduced cost. A fully masterworked piece of legendary armor can be changed to another energy type for 10,000 glimmer and 1 upgrade module, whereas a fully masterwork piece of exotic armor can be changed for the cost of 20,000 glimmer and 1 upgrade module. The cost for changing a piece of armor's energy type before its fully masterwork remained unchanged. I think that in and of itself is also a good change. I can't tell you the amount of times I've contemplated needing to do it for an exotic, or I've held on to multiple types of Celestial Nighthawk helmets or of legendary helmets and been like, helmets, chest pieces, boots, etc., to have something for all scenarios. And I eventually just stopped caring and was like, well, I'm going to make do with what I have. This last paragraph is this is the one, my friends.
This is the one. This is it.
We're also making a change to the way Guardians create orbs of power with weapons. Elements of the new weapon crafting system will encourage you to use many different weapons and ask you to burn hard-earned masterwork materials on a weapon that you may only be using for a few hours just to generate orbs. That seemed like a tall order. This, combined with our desire to act on consistent feedback that players want to be able to generate orbs of power with exotic weapons that do not yet have catalysts, led us to the implementation that we'll be using in the Witch Queen and beyond. So, on paper, this sounds great. Exotics are going to be able to generate orbs no matter what. Even without a catalyst, I can go make them with La Monarch and with Jotun now. This sounds great. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
Orb generation on weapon multi-kills will no longer be a function of a weapon's masterwork status, but will instead be provided by a suite of armor mods, which are unlocked automatically for all players and which plug into the helmet armor mod socket. Each such mod will apply the orb generation effect to all weapons you have equipped of a particular damage type, so a single mod will cover multiple weapons in your arsenal if they share a damage type. This also applies to a weapon that changes damage types, like hard light or a kinetic weapon with osmosis. This is problematic for a lot of reasons. Number one, it concerns me that because they don't really lay it out here correctly, right? Like, am I going to have certain mods that are like, if I have an arc helmet, am I going to have, and I'm using an arc weapon, do I have to slot in a specific thing for arc armor for that? Like, how many times am I going to be changing up my my armor type for my helmet just for that? But on top of that, that's where our targeting mods go. That's where our ammo finder mods go. So in the current, through the lens of the current sandbox, this is not great. This is not good. It led to an interesting, Nerd Generalist and I were having a discussion about this earlier today about, well, what the hell do you possibly do forward then for masterwork status? Like, what is the point of masterworking a weapon now? Because the +5 isn't exactly worth it. Yeah. If that's all you're going to get out of it. And I completely agree.
What's happening over there?
I think people are racing outside my apartment, and that's not a joke. I genuinely think they are. I'm trying to pull up the the piece from a previous TWAB that I saw earlier today that kind of helps put some of this in consideration, because I was having a meltdown reading all this and was like, I don't know how I feel about any of this. I don't like it. Oh, shit. Did I not? I thought I saved it, and I don't know if I did. Well, damn. I'm going to keep looking for it while we're talking. But the long and the short of it is, I think that long term, this is probably a good thing. I remember them talking about how the fact that every legendary weapon masterworked and it creates orbs, that actually counts as like a weapon perk, and that actually puts strain on the back end of the game. I remember that being a thing.
Oh, really?
From previous, yes. And that's why I want to try and find the exact wording before I go misspeaking.
I guess maybe I just didn't know that.
I wasn't really aware of it either. So, okay. The part from the previous TWAB that I want to read, and this is Kevin Yanes retweeted this in the timeline today. Annual expansions are a good time for system-level changes since they get much more playtest time over a longer duration compared to a season. We don't like the desire for exotic catalysts is driven by the orbs of power generation they provide and have something in the works to let players build around that limitation. Weapon differentiation. If I have 2 Void adaptive hand cannons, one from the Suros Foundry and one from the latest raid, why do I care about one more than the other? The stats tend to be fairly close. Perk pools can be different, but there are only so many perks, and it's a stretch to say the perk pool gives the weapon its identity. We've got something shipping on all new and reissued weapons in the Witch Queen that addresses this issue directly and are working to expand the same solution to all weapons that drop in the future. We mentioned in patch notes that we're not done with special ammo economy in PvP and have a further tweak coming that should help bring down the amount of ammo floating around. Exotic primary weapons already advance ammo finder mods much faster, but we want them to feel better in hard PvE content and are adjusting all of them to reach this goal. We're adjusting some exotics, some that consistently top the PvP usage charts in a depressive way, some that have had their perks limited to a degree that are no longer warranted. We're looking at you, Chaperone. So this was back in November when this was put out, most likely, because they referenced Chaperone in it directly, and they've addressed some of the ammo concerns already. When you take this into consideration with what we were just told, I'm willing to lower my torch and pitchfork a little bit. I do not play PvP in such a way that I gotta generate as many orbs as humanly possible. I worry about it for things like day one raids. I worry about it for exploring a dungeon for the first time, for this legendary campaign that's coming up. Where we're gonna have the master difficulty campaign. Those are the harder endgame content where you rely so much on orb generation and defensive supers and things like that. That's where I start getting a little concerned. And I think that's totally reasonable. I think that's the concern I was seeing from a lot of people, but the Destiny community likes to go from 0 to 100 really fast.
No, they
considering
don't.
Other avenues.
That's not true.
My idea was, what if there are perks, and it's kind of what is hinted at here in this sandbox spiel that I just read. What if certain foundries have certain perks built into them? I would be fine if, also just give me a weapon mod that lets me make the orbs if I want to. Make me swap out counterbalance stock for this. Make me switch out targeting adjuster if I want it if I want the orb generation that badly.
Yeah.
I think that's always an option. Don't make it, restricting it to just armor really limits the amount of build crafting you can do. It's kind of the opposite of what they've encouraged us to do for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's where my problem with it lies, is it takes away the creativity and the problem solving that new content brings, because now you're I want my orbs. I want my orbs more than anything. And I think also the thing that these changes are forcing us to consider is you pretty much the master armor from Grasp of Avarice is now the best set of armor in the entire game to get. We need those extra slots with being able to use all of the artifact mods.
Yeah.
You need those extra slots because those extra slots are just for artifact mods. You have to have a full set of that armor now.
Mm-hmm.
I will be grinding the master dungeon from now until Witch Queen to get a full set of high statted armor to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. I'm totally here for it. It's been a very long time since I masterworked a set of armor. That's my problem, is I don't have any materials. Not enough to do a whole set, at least. But I'm very curious to see what the solution is for weapons, and I really hope that they tell us. I don't think it'll be this next week, but they can't let it go much more than maybe 2 weeks without this community absolutely ready to grab their pitchforks and torches, those who haven't already grabbed them.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a problem. If that's all you wanted to say today, you could have saved that until you were ready to have the weapons explanation. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You could have put all that in one. This is the ultimate. This could have been an email TWAB.
Yeah.
With these couple paragraphs removed. So like I said, artifact mods, great news. Love it. Absolutely love it. But the other stuff, maybe you could have tied it in. I don't know. And I don't know if I'm just completely misreading this. I do think that the reaction is overblown. We saw a lot of overreactions back before Season of the Lost, back before Season of the Splicer.
I agree that this probably could have been, if they're not going to do it all at once, it could have been divided better.
This needed to be divided better.
But also, everybody just needs to chill out, I think. I get it, but I don't know. Maybe they just thought that this would be easier, and it just, everybody just wants all the information all at once so they can prepare, right?
It's just it. I think if we got a reasoning that it was affecting something on the back end, because I'm trying to remember where I saw it now, because I definitely saw it in my feed today. that it affects the back end a little bit, that every legendary weapon treats it like another perk. And that's why we don't always get like double perk columns at the end of all legendary weapons anymore.
Right.
But like you gotta save some sort of space in the game, right? And they alluded to vault space as well, and not just for armor. But if this is ultimately being done just to give exotics that like built-in ability, I don't think the trade-off is worth it. Yes, I think that this opens up the ability to use so many more exotics rather than just things with catalysts for high-end content, but at what cost? Like, who is running around with certain... Well, and I mean, again, I can't even say that because, I mean, it opens the door for things like Thunderlord and Thorn to be used in high-end PvE. So I can't even say that. Like, I don't know. I'm desperately trying to find the explanation that I had, and I don't remember where it is. And that's pretty frustrating now that I can't find it. I'm gonna keep saying because I'm really annoyed. But that's the only possible explanation I can see, is that there is something on the back end that they're not ready to tell us about yet. I know that it's been speculated for a long time that was probably causing some sort of strain. I mean, and that would explain some of the glitches we've seen where people suddenly generate like 30 orbs at once or something.
Right.
I mean, I've had it happen to me in the EDZ before, where I've just like, I happened with Vex Mythoclast actually, where all of a sudden I had like 20 orbs pop out of one drag. It was hilarious when I was first testing it out with the Catalyst.
Yeah.
I took a screenshot of it somewhere, but I think that proves to be its own issue in and of itself. So I think we're just kind of in a holding pattern until we figure out what happens here in a couple of weeks. But there's 5 weeks to launch, and I'm sorry, like, people are going to be anal about this because this changes the whole game, and you've got a raid coming out within 2 weeks of launch. We're less than 2 months away from the Witch Queen raid. Like, I'd kind of like some of this to be shored up. So I know, like, so I at least know, like, do I need to worry about getting a whole set of armor procured just from this dungeon? Is there going to be armor worth getting out of the legendary campaign that maybe I want instead? How are perks going to work? Like, I want all this information before I do too much grinding for nothing.
Right.
And I want it now. This is America. I want it now. So any last thoughts on this, on orb generation, Corey, on the paragraph heard around the world?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, we kind of just beat the crap out of it at this point. So,
all right, 30th anniversary content. It's sticking around all year.
Yeah,
they'll have an update for us later in the year, but the Xur content is here to stay. I have a feeling it'll probably get vaulted around Christmas time.
Yeah,
which
I figured
is fine because, God, I don't know how many more Dares of Eternity I can play right now just to try and get a Ghost and a Sparrow. But it's not many more. I'm tired of playing Dares at this point.
I mean, I got everything I wanted. I got the helmet, the helmet ornament. I got all the weapons, right? Like, I got the Forerunner the other day because I was like, well, I should probably just sit down and do this because we kind of assumed that this was sticking around for a year, but we weren't really sure.
The only thing I'm missing is I need to do 3 more of the things on Legend. I need to do 3 specific events on Legend difficulty to unlock the Vidmaster title. And after that, I do want to still get the Ghost, or I want to get the Ghost with the Halo ring around it. But I'm not like panicking either. Like, I see people going, oh, I finally got it. I'm like, man, it is a slog. That's why I just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I need them to do like a Xur double XP weekend at some point.
Yeah.
Because I'm not finishing it without one of those. This is worse than the Gambit grind, and it's a fun activity, but I don't want to play like 200 of these to get everything.
Right.
Like, it's insane that I have almost the full armor set for every character, but I can't freaking get those last 3 things because I'm still so far away.
Right.
It's wild to me. There's a new Prime Gaming bundle. Go check that out if you have Twitch Prime. Blah, 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 blah. And yeah, that's about it. It is a very short TWAB. Oh, Operation Save the New Lights. We talked about New Lights last week, getting put into dares when it's 11:50, and they're starting the game out at like 10:50 or 1100, and it's not going well for them.
Mm-hmm.
They were getting stuck in there for like hours at a time. So a bunch of Guardians were lowering their light and going in there and then re-equipping everything. And eventually it got to be where there was too much crossover. So if you play between now and January 18th, you do any run of Dares of Eternity, you will get a special emblem, which is really, really cool. Very excited about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like the emblem. I like the emblem. I've definitely seen better, and I don't know that I'll ever use it because I have a lot of other emblems that I like, but it is a cool one. And yeah, I'm looking to see if there is anything else here at the end that we need, and I do not think that there is. We'll have more to share over the next couple weeks, including more on Gambit, weapon crafting, and other goodies we can't wait to show off. So I think that kind of answers our question for what the next couple TWABs will be. Obviously, big weapon TWAB is coming at some point, probably a sandbox one. Weapon crafting, I would say playlists. Gambit probably is included in playlists.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that basically takes us up to launch.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where we go. I think the excitement around Witch Queen is something that we have. Like, we saw excitement around Beyond Light.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after a full... God, it'll have been 14, 15 months since Beyond Light came out when Witch Queen finally launches. About 15 months. After a full year and a half. I mean, we're 18 months since Arrivals came out.
Yeah, but
18 months of consistently great content.
Yeah, I feel like people are excited for the Witch Queen because we've been hearing about this character since the very beginning, mixed with hopes and kind of nostalgia for the Taken King, right? And mixed with, like, the Throne World looks cool and she looks scary, and just all the little things in the trailer, like the trailers and everything, and the Hive Guardians, like, it's changing the game while hitting a lot of nostalgia points. At least that's how I feel about it, and it's just exciting. Yeah,
very, very, very excited to see what happens here. I think it's be the culmination of a lot of long-running plot threads while also launching us really into the final act of Destiny 2 as we know it. The final act of Light and Dark really kicks off with this. So excited to see what happens there.